I'm recording this with some tension in my chest and also a happy chappy kind of mood. I'm feeling kind of two states at the moment. One is, there's a bit of tension in the chest, but also humming, making up tunes in my head, and that's my current state. What's your current state? Maybe it's 2 states happening at once, 5 states happening at once, or whatever, but that's me. I want to share with you today on the podcast about our ego's lines of defenses, because I had a ripper session with one of my legends. The Legends is my 6-month group coaching program for women that I run once a year. There's a maximum of 15 to 20 women in that cohort. And within their 6-month coaching journey, they get a one-on-one session. And one of my clients that I was working with, we were chatting about something that she really wanted after a meditation that she listened to and wrote notes down in her journal. And so when she shared with me what those notes were, there were immediate attacks from her ego, immediate resistance, stories, etc. And I started chatting to her about the different lines of defenses. So there's first line, second line, third line, however many lines of defense your ego is going to put up before it goes, oh, God damn it. This human being is very keen on this intention or this end result, right? So let's say your end result outcome, what you're seeking, what you're on a quest on is to be more of your authentic nature, your authentic self. You want to stand firm in who you are, be relaxed at the same time in who you are. When you go out to places, you're not morphing yourself, contorting yourself. You're not overcompensating in your behavior. You feel quite relaxed in who you are. If you feel that there's a reason to speak and a need to speak, you do. If you don't, then you don't. And you don't make it mean anything, right? Now, of course, our ego is always listening in the background going, pretty sure what you said was pretty fucking wanky and you shouldn't have said that. Now they're going to think this of you, that of you, that of you. That's always going to be there, right? And this same client, when she's been doing the work, she's like, I've heard you say so many times that no matter what we do, the ego will always be there. She's like, but now I'm really in the work with you. I really understand that. So there was a place in her life where she cognitively got that, but now she's actually experiencing it and learning how to manage this part of herself. So she started to share with me what she had written down and her desires and what she's seeking. And the defenses were coming up, the ego stories were coming up. And like I said, the lines were 1, 2, 3, 4, however many. And I want you to think about, as I share this, your lines of defense. So I said to her, I'm like, all right, cool. What is the ego's first line of defense with regard to what you are talking about here and what you've written down? And the first one was, okay, the first thing that it will throw up and attack me with to try and not allow me to go forth and take my next best step is, what are other people going to think? People are going to think that I'm crazy, I'm selfish, that I've lost it, that this is a bad idea. Other people are going to judge me, and those people were her immediate, circle, and then people, on more of the outer circle. And that is where her ego goes first. Immediately, what are others going to think? What are others going to think if you start expressing yourself? What are others going to think if you start living on purpose? What are others going to think if you start, creating and being creative. Like, what are they going to say, right? And I said to her, all right, cool. Let's just imagine for a moment that you broke through that line of defense. If you imagine like an army of egos inside of her that were just like, no, other people are going to think this. And then she broke through them and then the line was broken. I said, what's the second line of defense? What's already waiting to go, yeah, cool. Well, if she got through this one, she ain't going to get through. She got through that one, she ain't going to get through this one. And she said, my ego starts to attack my age and that I'm too old and that I should have done this earlier. And because I didn't do this earlier, then there's no way that I could do it now. You need energy, you need vigor, you need life force, and I'm too old. I'm past the time of expressing myself authentically and living on purpose and creating and following through on ideas, which then starts to link back into people of, yeah, of course you're too old. People are going to think you're crazy. People are going to think, she should be retiring. She should be whatever, right? So the first two lines of defense then start playing with one another. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's just imagine that you broke through the first and second line of defense. You broke through those beliefs of 1, what are others going to think? 2, your age. What's the third line of defense? What's going on there? And she said, the next line of defense waiting for me is my ego starts to attack my intelligence, that I'm not smart enough, I'm not wise enough, I'm not intelligent. I wasn't brought up this way. I just don't have that smarts. I don't have the smarts for this. I don't have the smarts to start my own business or to follow through on my ideas. I don't have that X factor or genius factor, So really the ego is trying to dumb her down, saying that she just hasn't got what it takes. She hasn't got it. She doesn't know. She doesn't know what step to take. She doesn't know who to contact. She doesn't know because she's not intelligent, because she's not smart. And I said, okay, are there any more lines of defense? And she said, Kat, they are the 3 main ones. And to be honest, I never get past the first one because my fear of other people judging me and their opinion of me, I, meaning her ego, I can't deal with that. She said, I know the age stuff is there. I know the intelligent stuff is there too, but I haven't been able to break through the first one of other people judging. And she has some really beautiful ideas. She's got some really beautiful ideas, ones that are quite easy to fulfill when she takes away the egoic orientation and looks at it for what it is. And the next best step is quite available to her. It's quite obvious to her when she slows down, when she takes a breath, when she can hear the stories, understand why they're there, understand their job, and then put them aside and follow through on the next best step. And I've got to say, this particular legend, she has been breaking through monumentally. And, to the point where all of us other legends are like, wow, this isn't the same woman. This does not feel like the same woman that started the program. But she keeps meeting her ego, which is, like I said, very normal. And now that she's really tapping into her heart, really tapping into what matters to her and giving it the light of day, giving it life, giving it breath, ego says, cool, let's go defense 1, defense 2, defense 3. Let's really have those in place because now this person is in a coaching program. She's got a coach, she's got support, she's learning, she's advancing. So those defenses really start to double down. But when she started to see how obvious her next best step was, and also at the same time address these lines of defenses, name them, call them out, she was then able to clearly see what this rooted back to, where this stemmed from from her childhood, and that she was a scared little girl. She didn't play. She wasn't very curious. She, was in her room alone most of the time. And I said to her, like, now you are opening your world and you are in a whole new playground, right? You're out of your room and you're in a whole new playground to play with life, to dance with life, to be curious with life and all the things that you desire. But her ego is taking her back to being that scared little girl in a room who doesn't know how to play, doesn't know how to be creative, because she was told to live within the rules, told to live a certain way, right? So these lines of defenses are often the top level stories we tell ourselves, right? And then we give into them. We give into them, we give into them, we give into them. But once we start to look at them, name them, give them some air, let them breathe, write them out, let your eyes see them so they're called out. What you're able to then do is start to get down to the thread of where this wound is, where it began, and then start to tend to that part. Now, I'll put this with a big preface, just because we go back to an old wound and we look at it, we connect to it, whatever type of healing you do, right? It doesn't mean it never comes back. Often the wound will, over time, share different aspects of itself that we do need to tend to, we do need to take care of. And then sometimes we think, oh, cool, great, that's addressed, that's been assessed. But then it shows up in another way, and we can get quite frustrated with that. We can get annoyed with that. It's like, oh, fuck, come on, I've dealt with that. I went to therapy, I went to this, I did that. And it's like, yeah, cool. That's cool. That's okay. But different scenarios in our reality, especially as we grow and advance and different people in our lives, it will touch the wound in a different way. And the wound will shed another area of light that says, fuck, whatever's happening in your current reality right now, this is really pressing on the wound. And it asks us to look at the lines of defenses, the immediate ones, go deeper and tend to what's there. And often that's the work, as we go for what we want, as we start to have loving relationships, no different to this client here. She's really starting to really land and be in her authentic essence. And it's impacting beautifully with her family. And now her ideas are starting to flow and there's curiosity again. But that's happening in her reality. In the wound reality, it's like, whatever you're doing up there, it's really affecting me down here. And so then we start to get a bit stuck in our current reality. And then those lines of defenses start flicking themselves up. And so when we can start to go, all right, cool, there's resistance here, there's stuckness here, there's these lines of defenses that just are the same old stuff for her. It's what do others think, her age and her intelligence. And so when she starts to look beyond that and comes down, she can go, okay, there's my scared little girl again. I'm opening, I'm expanding, I'm broadening, I'm widening my eyes, I'm widening my heart. And I still need to tend to that wounded little girl and let her know that she's safe and that we're okay and that I've got this, right? And that's the journey that she's on, and often that's a journey we're all on. So I just want to put a big fat asterisk on that, because I do meet a lot of people who are like, oh, I've dealt with this before. Why'd I have to deal with it again? I'm like, hey, you got new stuff happening in your reality. You've got new capacity in your reality to love, to be courageous and brave and go for things. And there's another, snippet of your wound that just says, I don't think so. But my point here today is these lines of defenses that throw themselves up are clues and to what's happening underneath. And when we start to notice them rather than be frustrated by them or like, oh, yeah, what will others think? Oh, and start to get sucked up by them. Or, yes, I am too old. Or, yes, I don't know enough and I'm not intelligent. And we can start to not, like I said, resist, hate, fight against that, and be swept up swept up by them. Then we can observe them. We can watch them and go, yeah, cool. I see why this is coming up. Let me address it. Let me voice it. Let me write it out, whatever it may be. And now let me be brave and courageous to see what might be underneath it. Now, when you go to the underneath, you may go through a pretty big storm. You may go through just a little storm. You may go through a middle-sized storm, depending upon what is going on in the wound and how, big and important that intention of yours is. So I want to bring that to the forefront of your mind today and ask you, when you go for things that you want, what your heart desires, not what your ego desires, when you go for what your heart desires, for example, to be your authentic self, to feel grounded in who you are, to be financially independent, what are the first lines, second lines, third lines, fourth lines, however many lines of defense that come up? First, you got to know that, right? Recently, I have been entering into my next layer of financial independence. I did layer 1 and now I'm in layer 2 or whatever layer it is. And really, developing my money IQ, my money EQ, but really my money IQ. Soon as I as soon as my ego starts to hear about money IQ and, shares or like making money from money, all that kind of stuff, boom, first line of defense is you don't have a seat at this table. You got no idea what this is about, and you'll never know what this is about. My first line of defense is you are illiterate in how to really make money, right? So I'm illiterate. I don't know enough, and I'll never know enough, right? If I break through that second line of defense, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You're a woman. Women in your family, they don't make this. They can't make this. More than that, they're not allowed to make this, right? So they're my lines of defenses that are coming up and have been coming up, and I've been noticing them, observing them, at times hating them, and then being patient with them. And what I have done as a result is I've gone to the wound and looked at intergenerational trauma, intergenerational patterns of women in my family, both sides of my family, and money. And I'm like, all right, cool, let's dive into that. It hasn't been painful. It's been a bit uncomfortable. It hasn't been, feeling like a big dark storm. It's just like, yeah, cool, there's some clouds here, bit of rain, bit of wind, but I can get this sorted fairly cleanly, And then there are other places, other times where I have stated something that I have wanted. Like I've mentioned this recently on Instagram, where I think it was last year, 2022, or maybe a year before that, where I wanted to land and settle more into my feminine, which I've spoken about on the podcast before. That's the intention. First line, fucking feminine's weak. The feminine is weak. There is no place for it. They add no value. Get on with it, right? If I broke through that first line of defense, second line is you are invalid if you are not doing. Invalid. You have no validity. You have no right to existence, right? Then there's a third, fourth, however many lines of defenses. takes me back down to the wound and where that began. Again, looking at the masculine and the feminine, how I was brought up. Okay, cool. My mum gave up her work for us. My dad, he worked his butt off and gave us what we had. And so I'm like, all right, cool. Well, in order to survive in the world, you got to fucking work hard, and the women don't do that. So women are invalid. So let's be more like the masculine, right? So it was looking at, oh my gosh, why my mum chose to give up work and how that impacted us in such a beautiful way, because she was there for us and loved us and nurtured us and mothered us and hugged us and, all the beautiful things that I love about her that I totally abolished. And I'm like, cool, there's another piece of the wound that I need to look at and tend to so I can continue my quest, right? So I'm sharing today with you, what are you going after from the level of your heart? Question 1. And 2, what are your ego's first, second, third, however many lines of defenses? And what are those lines of defenses? Immediate, backup, extra backup, extra backup. Name them, write them down, see them in front of you. And then I'll invite you, if you feel safe and comfortable to do so on your own, to see where that thread may land back at in terms of an early childhood wound. If you don't feel safe to do that and okay to do that, please don't. Seek a professional, seek me out, and someone who can guide you back to that place where it might be really tender, really, really tender, especially if this is the first time you might have done that. Or if you're, well accustomed to going back to times in your life, cool, not a problem. You will know where you're at. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you don't know how to work with your ego, if you are working against it, or if you think that your ego is you, what matters at the level of your heart will really struggle to see the light of day. This work is important, this work matters, and it's worth you getting uncomfortable.